always implore the government to remember it's not just a question of legislating, but good legislation. Looking at the law of unforeseen consequences that can come out with good intentions but bad legislation. Let's make sure we use the brains of this place and the other place to make legislation better and really deliver a good, proper period of reform. Thank you.
Helen Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak in the debate on the Gracious Speech today, and it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Bexhill and Battle. I pay tribute to all those across my constituency of Dulwich and West Norwood who've worked throughout the COVID-19 pandemic to provide support to our children and young people. Early years staff, teachers and youth workers all kept working throughout the pandemic with such dedication in extraordinarily difficult circumstances, often fearful for their own health. Our local councils, Lambeth and Southwark, stepped in at key times to provide free school meals when the government refused to fund them, and laptops and broadband access as month after month the government dragged its feet. Our children and young people have borne the brunt of the pandemic, missing out on learning, extracurricular activities and time with their friends. Their mental health has suffered and the disadvantage gap in education has widened. Last year's exam scandal heaped yet more entirely avoidable misery on an already difficult year, with thousands of young people plunged into weeks of turmoil with their dreams at risk because of the government's botched algorithm. This year's exam students have also been put through months of anxiety due to dithering and uncertainty about how they would be assessed. I met this morning with Year 10 students at the Norwood School in my constituency, who ask for urgent clarity on how they will be assessed in their GCSE and BTEC exams next year, and how the government will take account of the 2 years of disrupted education they have suffered. Children and young people have been an afterthought for the government throughout the pandemic. They must be the first priority for the recovery. We cannot allow the disadvantage and inequality exacerbated by the pandemic to define the future of this generation of children and young people. And this is not inevitable. With political will and resources, we can get our children and young people back on track. Yet, Madam Deputy Speaker, this gracious speech is simply not good enough. In London, the vacuous phrase levelling up means no such thing. We have seen time and time again the government cutting the funding for our schools to make politically expedient funding choices elsewhere in the country. The full additional costs of the pandemic have not been covered for London schools. And now they face